For the past few years now, I've been busy learning design, 3D, and animation. And even though the end goal for me was always to make real YouTube videos, I never really felt like I had the setup that I needed. So I'm changing that today. I just signed a lease to this empty apartment, and I'm going to be using everything I've ever learned about design and 3D modeling to build out the studio that I've always wanted. All right, now for the record, I have absolutely zero experience actually building a studio, but from what I can tell, it should be a pretty simple 4-step process. First of all, I have to measure out every wall in my apartment. From there, I can convert those measurements into a 3D model that should let me decide on the basic layout I want everything to go in. And then I have to actually build everything, of course. But there is one thing I'm a little concerned about. Let me explain. All right, so this is a 1-bedroom apartment, which means that there's a bedroom, a living room, and that's about it. The problem is that I want to fit 3 spaces. I want a bedroom, a living room, and somewhere for me to film, which means that I have to get a little creative with my space here. The first step is scanning every wall of the apartment with the iPhone Measure app. And it's not the most accurate thing in the world, but it does the job and hopefully I won't regret it later. Next up, it was time to turn all of those measurements into something I could actually use. First, I opened up Figma and used the length of each wall to create a basic floor plan. I then imported that floor plan into Blender and got to work on modeling out every single room. I've been using Blender for a few years now, so it didn't take too long before I could see the basic shape start to come together. There we go, a fully recreated version of the place in 3D. This should let me figure out planning better and what goes where before I actually go out and buy everything. And until then, I will be living with this air mattress, so. All right, so I have been trying to come up with a solution for this weird layout problem I've had, right? And the only thing I could think of is if I put my desk right there, right in front of the front door, which is a little weird, the camera would point towards me and I would have this entire blank back wall to make something visually interesting. And honestly, I think that's all I need. I think that works. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Let me cook. I finally had a general idea for a layout, but I still didn't really know what the studio is actually gonna look like. Luckily, I came prepared. For the past year, I've been bookmarking these setup pictures on Twitter, and they're a little all over the place, but I think they give you a decently good idea of the vibe that I'm going for. This is basically my physical Pinterest board. It is 25 real setups I saw online over the past year that felt kind of similar to what I would want to create for myself. I want something clean and easy to look at, but I also really want something that's visually interesting. The end goal is that every single surface is filled with some sort of color or material or texture, so I could go anywhere in the studio and still find an interesting camera angle. After weeks of trying to make up my mind, I finally landed on what I wanted the key component of my studio to be. The IKEA SCADIS pegboard. It's clean, but it's still visually interesting, it's super customizable, and it takes up the perfect amount of space on this back wall. Below the pegboard, I decided on this custom work desk, which should be great for top-down shots and make the pegboard look less weird and floaty. Also, when I say this desk is custom, what I really mean is that it's the longest kitchen countertop IKEA sells, sitting on top of the only drawers I could find that are all the exact same height of 70 inches. So hopefully, if all goes right, the weight of the countertop should be evenly distributed across all of them. In the other corner, I've got this bookshelf for displaying stuff, and that pretty much completes the office space. Because I opted to use the living room area for my studio, the living room itself will have to go in a little nook next to the kitchen, and the bedroom will be my bedroom. Okay, I've officially placed my IKEA order. Now I just have to wait for everything to show up. All right, my order finally arrived and I'm sitting on this massive pile of boxes from IKEA, which means that there's only one thing left to do. I'm hoping that this is a 1 to 3 day build, but I have been known to underestimate timelines in the past. After over a month of planning, it was finally time to get to work. Throughout the entire building process, all I could think of was, is this going to look like the render? Is this going to look how I've been picturing this whole time? I was super anxious about that, but honestly, it was going pretty well, although I did run into one small issue. Remember how the whole plan was to use drawers of the same height to hold up my desk? Well, it turns out IKEA lied to me, and these are not the same height at all. I ended up having to get a little creative by stacking these rubber insulating strips in the bottom of the Alex drawer. which worked well enough. Also, shout out to my neighbor for helping me move this massive countertop. But yeah, I think this desk came together great. I was honestly so excited once this basic desk came together because it was the first step towards the render from earlier starting to become real, which was just so cool. Next up, I got to drilling in the pegboards. And if I look like I don't really know what I'm doing here, it's because I absolutely do not. All right, I've now completed the basic build out of the studio, and it's not very impressive right now because as you can see, it is extremely empty, but that's where the fun part comes in of actually getting to decorate it with all of the lights and posters and tech stuff that I've had just sitting around waiting to be added. This is kind of the moment of truth for me because I'm about to find out if this actually ends up matching the vision that I've had in my head for the past year of what I've wanted. So here it goes. So without further ado, here is the final shot. So yeah, this is the final shot. And if we compare it to the render from earlier, I think it turned out pretty close, honestly. But yeah, I could not be more happy with how this turned out. I mean, even though I rendered out everything ahead of time and I knew roughly what it was gonna look like, nothing could have prepared me for how much better it looks in person. Oh yeah, but that's not all. Remember how I put the actual living room in that room over there? Well, after adding a few decorative touches, I turned it into this secondary camera angle that I can cut to. I also have this angle of my work desk and the top-down shot that I've been using throughout the video. Now that I finally have the setup that I've wanted for the past year, it's time for me to get to work on finally building the channel that I've always wanted to create. So if you're obsessed with tech like I am and you want to think a little deeper about how we design our future, if that gets you excited, then consider getting subscribed.